Do you ever just read a book and get so excited about it and you start to read it and you realize this is not at all what you want to be reading right now? Well, usually I don't feel that way, but apparently this year I DNF'd a lot of books. So let's get into it. But before I do, hey, my name is Frank. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things bookish. So before I get into any of these books, I do want to just kind of disclose that if you have read any of these or you plan to read any of these, cool. Don't let my DNF persuade you one way or the other, because you will find that for a lot of these, I DNF them because I'm more of a mood reader. So sometimes it has nothing to do with the actual book itself. It's more just the vibe is not what I'm looking for at that point in time. So keep that in mind. And yeah, let's get into it. So starting off with the first book that I DNF'd this year, we have Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I believe this was actually read by the author herself because I listened to this as an audiobook. So unfortunately, it's not like this wasn't written bad. The premise was pretty cool. This is about a woman who goes to stay at I think it's a Best Western, some kind of like chain motel out in the middle of the desert because she kind of just needs a break. Her father, I can't remember if he recently passed away or no, I think he might just be really, really sick in the hospital. And she was kind of taking care of him for a while in the hospital, which, as anyone knows, can be very emotionally draining. And also, her husband is disabled and chronically ill, and the doctors can't really figure out what he has, what his condition is. All they know is that he's been sick for a very long time, and she is also his caretaker. So she just goes to this motel in the desert, and she's like, okay, I need a break. I need some time to myself. Her husband is very understanding of that, and he seems pretty cool as a character. I was into that. Um, and so she one day she goes for a hike in the desert and comes across a gigantic cactus. And she kind of like stuffs herself inside of this cactus and has these weird visions or hallucinations. I'm not really sure because I never really finished the book. This is literary fiction, so if this sounds like something you're into, definitely maybe check it out. I wasn't very emotionally invested in any of the characters, especially the main character. And like I mentioned earlier, for me, it was just not the vibe that I thought I wanted when I started to read this book. Maybe I'll get back into it. Maybe I'll check it out again. But for the time being, this was the first book that I DNF'd this year. Moving on to the second one. This is Not a Ghost Story by Andrea Portes. I don't know if this is a ghost story or not. Maybe based off the title, it wasn't. Whatever it is, it's about this young girl. I think she's in college, like freshman or something like that in college, or she might be like senior year of high school, something like that, something around that age. And she is house sitting for the summer so that she can make some money, so that she can go to college. And I didn't care at all about this. There's something creepy going on with the house. I didn't really get to the point where I figured out what it was. All I know is that this is supposedly a haunted house, which of course she doesn't know that when she goes into agreeing to house it. All that she knows is nobody nearby in the local town goes to this house. So yeah, it was boring. It was boring. For me, it was boring for me. I didn't care for it at all. I was like, okay, girl, like good luck. Have fun in that haunted house. And yeah, I DNF'd it around, I think I was like a quarter of the way through the book, maybe a little bit further along than that, and I just didn't. I was like, it put me in a reading slump after this. I didn't pick up another book for a while. So that was kind of a bummer. Really quick, if you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button, maybe subscribe if you're into more bookish content. All right, let's keep going. Now moving on to the third book. I'm going to tell you right now, I DNF'd this because this was a nonfiction book. This book was recommended to me by my sister, who does read quite a bit of nonfiction, and I think it's one of those like self-help books. The premise is interesting. It's called Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. And the reason I didn't much care for this is, one, at the time I was not as invested in trying to read nonfiction as I am now. And then the other thing is that it was very convoluted, I guess. Well, I'll just say it like that. This was also an audiobook that was narrated by the author herself. And something I did like about this book was, as she was narrating it, it was more like a conversation. Like she was like talking and narrating it as if we were like sitting down and talking about this subject, as opposed to her like reading line for line from the book. So I liked that. I felt like that was pretty cool. It felt more like a podcast than an audiobook, which was pretty neat. Unfortunately, just didn't I it did not pull me. This if you are interested in it, it's basically, it navigates and kind of discusses the premise that the more evolved and extensive our language and vocabulary is, specifically surrounding our emotions, the more emotionally like intelligent or mature we are. So like if you have more words to describe how you're feeling, you fundamentally understand your feelings better and are therefore able to kind of process them a bit easier, which I felt was pretty interesting. I do think that the idea of it is cool. I just couldn't. I couldn't care about it. I could not be made to care about it, unfortunately. Oh, anyway, so that was that. This one, the next book that I unfortunately just DNF'd, and I do plan on kind of revisiting it because it was good, is Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. If you are queer, if you are trans, if you read books by queer and trans authors, then especially horror, then you have probably come across this book or something else by Andrew Joseph White. And I do wanted to say that this was absolutely positively a me thing. This was just like I think I got like 60% of the way through this book, and I just stopped reading it, and I didn't pick it up for a long time, and then I returned it back to the library. That was it. It was just not the mood. Like I kind of like faded out. It's not that I didn't like it or enjoy it. The writing was well done. The characters were well written. The story premise was very interesting and very cool for me. It just it was just one of those books where I stopped reading it and I just didn't pick it back up, and then I just returned it back to the library. So I will be trying to pick that up again at some point. I don't know when, but eventually I will. So yeah, moving on to the next one. So the last two books were it's kind of like the same vibe as the Andrew Joseph White book, is just that the premise was good, the writing was beautiful, especially for this book right here. So it's The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. Shafak, beautiful. The very beginning of this book, the first like 20% of this book, I was hooked. I like powered through this. This book is about a young girl. She's Cypriot. She is half Turkish Cypriot, half Greek Cypriot. And obviously, if you don't know anything about Cyprus, then maybe look into that because Greeks and Turks have historically a lot of beef, especially when it comes to Cyprus. So this girl being half of one and half of the other obviously has a lot of like internal struggle about it, especially because she was raised by her mother and father in England, not in Cyprus, and she doesn't really know her either side of her family that well. None of them have ever come to visit her. There's a lot of family history that this book kind of begins to navigate and dive into, and it is also like part of this is told from, I believe this is all third person. No, wait, nope, that's a lie. I believe the young girl, because I think she's like 15 or so, the young girl's perspective is third person, and then it switches to a different point of view, like kind of a back and forth situation of a fig tree that her father had taken and brought to England from Cyprus and has nurtured and grown and cares a lot about it. He has a green thumb, he's into gardening and stuff like that. And so part of this book is told from first person point of view of the fig tree, which is awesome. I listened to this as an audiobook, and the narrator, amazing. 10 out of 10. Loved her. Super cool. And so I do want to kind of try to dive into this again. It just, again, it was a vibe thing. Unfortunately, I was like really into it, and then just like that, I stopped reading it. So yeah, definitely a very interesting read. I've heard very good things about this author in general. I believe they have another book that a lot of people talk about in high praise. Can't remember the title of it. I'm recording with my phone and I don't have Wi-Fi, so I can't look it up right this moment. But yeah, there's that. Now the final book that I DNF'd this year, and this one is also kind of a bummer. Cebo Campbell's A Sky Full of Elephants. This was disappointing because I'm a disappointment, not because this book itself was disappointing. Again, beautifully well written, uh, very interesting premise. Was super into the idea of, I believe it's basically about like if all the white people in the world just like woke up one day and we went to just like drown ourselves or fall off the face of the earth, basically, what that would look like post white people existing. And that's kind of what happens in this book, is that like white people literally wake up one day and just walk into the ocean, and then the story follows along our main character who is navigating that. I believe he navigates that with his daughter, and they kind of like do like a journey across the country or something like that. Unfortunately, I did not get very, very far into this, so I don't know what happens during this journey. I'm not sure if this is more like science fiction or literary fiction, or maybe a combination of both, or maybe just I'm not entirely sure what happens. So I do want to pick this one up again. Hell Followed With Us and Sky Full of Elephants, and then of course The Island of Missing Trees. These are 3 of the 6 books that I DNF'd that I do plan on picking up again at some point. It's just unfortunately, as much as I was loving them, I like that's something that happens to me sometimes, is that I'll be reading a book that I'm really enjoying, that I really like, that's very well written, and then I just like it's like a switch flicks off in my brain and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this." I do that with TV shows too. Like sometimes like something is so emotionally overwhelming for me, or just like very, it brings up a lot of like anxiety. Watching The Walking Dead, watching Game of Thrones, like those shows like messed me up. Okay. I had to power through that stuff. I had to like really like force myself to keep watching because I knew that it would be that they were good shows. It's just the emotional turmoil was very overwhelming. And I kind of get that way with books sometimes, is that I'll be reading something and I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling so many feelings. And then I just step away from it and kind of never go back. Sometimes it's the opposite, like with the other 3 books where it's like, I'm not feeling anything and I don't care. So I'm going to stop reading this now. So those are my typical reasons for DNFing. These were the 6 books that I DNF'd in 2025. And yeah, if you have read any of these or any of these sound interesting to you and you think you would pick them up, let me know in the comments because, I'm interested. What books did you DNF this year? Let me know because sometimes I like to check out other people's DNFs and be like, are we on the same vibe about this or do we feel totally differently? So yeah, let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you liked this video, go ahead, hit that like button, maybe hit that subscribe button too if you're into more bookish content. And I'll see you guys next time.